Captain Elias Rourke stepped out of the docking bridge and into the main corridor of Helios 9, catching the subtle drop in temperature that always came with a station built by more than one species. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharper than human-built environments, with a distant hum that resonated deeper than any Terran system he'd worked on. The KIRVA Dominion didn't bother tuning their architecture to human comfort. Cooperation, they claimed, did not require coddling. 2 KIRVA guards watched him pass. Their crystalline eyes tracked him with unblinking precision, their tall frames wrapped in shimmering dark armor that caught every reflection. Their expressions, if KIRVA truly had them, remained unreadable. Elias simply nodded in greeting. Neither moved. All right, he thought. Friendly as advertised. But tension didn't bother him. He wasn't here for comfort. His assignment was simple on paper: serve as engineering liaison and, more quietly, observe the KIRVA systems integrated into the station. Joint research outposts didn't maintain themselves, and the Dominion had insisted on having a human present for symbolic parity. Symbolic, of course, meant he had no real authority. He continued down the corridor, luggage over his shoulder, when a soft chime echoed ahead. A gateway slid open, revealing a KIRVA woman standing beside a console, attention fixed on a floating holo display. Her posture was rigid, arms crossed behind her back the way Dominion scientists stood when absorbed in calculations. This had to be Dr. Luri Sythkel. Her iridescent skin caught the station lights in shifting colors, silver one moment, faint violet the next. Long, fine tendrils draped down the back of her head, shimmering like fibers of liquid light. She didn't look up until his footsteps echoed near the threshold. "You are Captain Elias Rourke," she said, voice smooth but clipped. "I am. And you must be Dr. Luri. I've read your research on quantum resonance mapping. Impressive work." Her head tilted, studying him as if he were a curious specimen. "Most humans do not read Dominion scientific publications. Most humans aren't stuck on a station full of people who think we're unpredictable," he replied lightly. "I figured I'd do my homework." A flicker crossed her expression, not amusement, not annoyance, something in between. "You will be assigned quarters after a brief systems orientation," she said. "Follow me." He did. Her stride was graceful, almost silent, yet purposeful. The corridor transitioned into a chamber lined with consoles and suspended holospheres that displayed the station's energy grid. KIRVA systems pulsed in geometric patterns human engineers still struggled to interpret. "This is the primary fusion stabilizer," Luri said, gesturing to a cluster of interconnected glowing pillars. "Its balance is delicate. Your species tends to resolve problems by increasing output. Do not attempt that here." Elias stepped closer and crouched near the lowest panel, examining its alignment. "Your phase regulators are drifting." "They compensate automatically," she replied. "They compensate slowly." He reached for a tool holstered at his belt. Luri's tendrils lifted slightly, a KIRVA reflex of warning. "Do not touch." Too late. He adjusted a minor dial, nudged a filament connector, and tapped the panel twice. The stabilizer humming dropped by one harmonic. A cleaner frequency rippled across the display, aligning the grid in a smooth curve. Luri froze. Elias stood. "Your compensation was working, but it would have taken an hour. Now it's done." Silence hung between them. She looked from him to the stabilizer, then back again. "How did you see that?" "Human intuition," he said, giving a small shrug. "We improvise." Her gaze stayed on him longer this time, less clinical, more curious. "Improvisation is inefficient. Until it works," he countered. "Then it's genius." It was subtle, but her stance softened by a fraction. He reached into his jacket. "Actually, I brought something for you. A small courtesy tradition back home." She watched warily as he opened his palm. A wooden pendant lay on it, smooth, polished, shaped into a small spiral. Handmade. He'd carved it during the flight. Human art didn't require cultural justification. Sometimes it was simply meaningful. Sometimes it was something to break a wall. Luri didn't move. It's just a gift, he explained. A welcome gesture. Her skin shifted color, silver to a faint shimmering blue. The tendrils at her temples quivered like strings catching vibration. For the first time, her composure fractured, not from fear, but something deeper, something Elias couldn't decipher. Slowly, she reached out. Her fingers brushed the pendant. The instant she touched it, her breath hitched. Why? Her voice trembled, barely audible. Why would you give this to me? It's what humans do, he said softly. We like to start on the right foot. Her hand closed around the pendant. Her entire body reacted. Her back straightened sharply, her pupils dilated, and a faint tremor went through her shoulders. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't parse but felt like a storm of emotions compressed behind disciplined restraint. Human, she whispered, voice cracking in a way he hadn't heard from any KRVA. You do not understand what this gesture signifies among my people. No, he admitted. But I figured it couldn't hurt. It could, she swallowed. It could change everything. Before he could ask, the chamber door opened. Heavy footsteps entered. High Custodian Saelreth towered over both of them, taller, broader, adorned in ceremonial armor etched with Dominion insignias. His gaze locked onto the pendant in Luri's hand. Dr. Syth Kell, he said coldly. Explain. She hid the tremor instantly, standing rigid. A human cultural exchange, Custodian. A frivolous ritual, Saelreth said. Humans confuse sentiment for substance. Elias met the Custodian's stare without shrinking. A gesture of respect, nothing else. Saelreth's eyes narrowed, unreadable slivers of polished crystal. You will remember, Captain, that Dominion protocols supersede human customs here. Understood, Elias said. But the look Saelreth gave Luri suggested the issue was far from over. When the Custodian left, Luri exhaled shakily. She kept the pendant pressed to her palm as though afraid it might be taken. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. Why? It's just a gift. For you, she said, voice thin. Maybe. For us, a gift is a declaration. An alignment. A promise. He blinked. Did I just accidentally propose a treaty? Her eyes lifted to meet his with quiet intensity. You offered something no KRVA would dare. Now my people will question where I stand. Elias absorbed the weight of that. Do you know where you stand? She hesitated. I do not. But I intend to find out. The station lights dimmed for a moment, just a flicker, but enough to draw her attention to the consoles. That fluctuation was not scheduled, she murmured. Could be nothing, Elias said. Or something, she replied. He nodded. Then we'll figure it out. Luri closed her fingers over the pendant again. Her tremble was gone, but something new lingered in her posture, resolve, maybe. Or curiosity. Or fear mixed with something else she didn't dare name yet. Welcome to Helios 9, Captain, she said quietly. Your presence may cause more disruption than either of us expected. He smiled faintly. That's usually how humans work. And for the first time, a faint spark lit her expression, like she almost understood. The next morning, Helios 9 felt different. Not visibly, its corridors still glowed with their muted violet lighting, its decks thrummed with the same layered pulse of human and KRVA engineering, but something in the air carried an edge Elias couldn't quite name. Suspicion? Anticipation? Maybe both. He headed toward the engineering deck with a tablet under his arm, reviewing last night's diagnostics. The brief flicker in the station's lighting still bothered him. KRVA systems rarely fluctuated. When they did, it meant someone had forced them to. Luri waited beside the primary access node, posture composed but tense. If she noticed the way her tendrils stiffened when he approached, she didn't show it. You came early, he said. You arrived earlier, she countered. I heard your footsteps. He raised an eyebrow. Your hearing's that sharp? It is necessary for work requiring precision. She tapped the access node, projecting a rotating holosphere of the station's AI lattice. I ran a check on the energy grid after your departure. The fluctuation originated from the core intelligence. Not from the stabilizers? Not directly. Someone interfered with the oversight protocols. A small change. Difficult to detect. She looked at him. You suspected this already? I suspected something smelled wrong, he admitted. Didn't expect core tampering. She stepped closer to the holosphere. The Dominion has strict control over its stations. Unauthorized access is nearly impossible. Nearly, he echoed. As in not entirely. Her silence was telling. He scanned the lattice projection. Several nodes flickered at irregular intervals, tiny distortions that broke the otherwise smooth sequencing. What are those? Phantom echoes. Her voice lowered. Someone copied portions of the AI code and hid it inside the grid. It mimics normal operations unless examined closely. And what does copied code do? That depends. She tapped a node. The flicker expanded, revealing a faint spike pattern. This one altered power routing. Last night's flicker was deliberate. Testing something, perhaps. Trying not to be noticed. Elias muttered. She nodded. It could be sabotage. The bluntness of her words hung in the air. He studied her expression. You think someone is preparing something. I think someone is preparing many things, she corrected. And I believe the custodian knows. Saoreth never leaves anything to chance. Elias folded his arms. Does he have reason to disrupt a joint station? Yes, she said quietly. Your species is gaining influence. Not all in the Dominion approve. Diplomacy's messy, he murmured. But sabotage would tip the entire council against KRVA leadership. Only if discovered. Her eyes met his. Or if someone decides to expose it. He held her gaze. You're considering it. I am considering what is true, she replied. Truth benefits both sides. He stepped closer to the console. Then let's find it. She hesitated, only a breath, but it carried the weight of her internal conflict. Then she expanded the lattice view to full scale. Thousands of nodes spiraled outward in elegant KRVA geometry, each representing a subroutine, system directive, or structural function. We must analyze each quadrant, she said. The tampering is scattered. Show me what to look for, he replied. For the next hour, they worked in concentrated silence. Elias observed the subtle rhythm between nodes. Luri identified irregularities he would have missed. Slowly, patterns emerged, echoes clustered around oxygen regulation, thruster calibration, and shield harmonics. Those systems aren't related, Elias said. They are, Luri corrected, fingers dancing across the projection. All three involve life support stability. So someone's setting up a chain reaction. Yes. A failure in one system would force human engineers to compensate manually. A delay of seconds could be catastrophic. Who benefits from blaming humans for a catastrophic failure? Elias asked. Anyone wishing to weaken Terran diplomatic standing. Her expression darkened. A convenient narrative. Elias exhaled slowly. We need access to the encrypted logs. Only the custodian has that authority. Then we need another way. She paused. There is an archive, an old KRV protocol vault. It stores inactive copies of the AI's early iterations. If code was inserted recently, we may find traces by comparing versions. Lead the way. She deactivated the display and guided him down a less traveled corridor. As they walked, the ambient lighting dimmed slightly, shifting from soft violet to deep indigo. The walls curved inward with organic angles common in older KRVA architecture, designs shaped before they began integrating with human patterns. This section predates joint development, she said. Most humans never enter. What about Dominion officials? Only those with clearance. Including Saoreth. Convenient, Elias muttered. The vault door stood tall and seamless, no visible controls. Luri placed her palm against a faintly glowing panel. Lines of light traced her hand, scanning unique KRVA biological patterns. A deep resonance filled the corridor as the vault opened. Inside, shelves of crystalline data cores glimmered like frozen stars. Elias let out a low breath. Impressive. We preserve knowledge, Luri said softly. Even when others forget. She guided him to a terminal shaped like intertwined arcs of obsidian metal. As she activated it, older AI iterations flickered to life, earlier versions of the station's intelligence. Elias leaned in. Start with the version from last month. As the terminal processed comparisons, Luri stepped back, watching him. There was something quieter in her gaze than earlier, uncertainty mixed with something fragile. Yesterday, she said suddenly, voice low. The gift you gave me, it still troubles me. He looked up. Troubles you how? In my culture, accepting a gift symbolizes an allegiance of thought or sentiment. It is not casual. It carries personal implication. My people value emotional restraint. I didn't mean to violate your customs. You didn't, she murmured. You acted from sincerity. That is what unsettles me. He waited for her to continue. Humans offer warmth easily, she said. You share emotion, history, memory. You express meaning in ways we call unsafe. But she looked away. I am beginning to question what safety truly is. Before Elias could respond, the terminal chimed sharply. He turned back to the display. Luri, look at this. The comparison revealed it clearly, multiple splices of foreign code embedded into the most recent version, sophisticated, hidden inside standard Dominion command signatures. Her breath caught. That pattern, it's military-grade encryption. Meaning? Only a high-ranking Dominion officer could insert this. Elias stared at her. Sailreth. Luri's expression tightened, not shock, but grim recognition. If this is true, he intends to provoke an incident and blame your people. And the council would believe him, Elias said. We're the newcomers. She stepped closer to the display. We must extract this evidence before it is purged. And before he realizes we've found it. She nodded once, resolute. Then we work quickly. The alarms hadn't sounded yet. No one had chased them. But both of them knew something heavy had shifted, like a silent clock beginning to count down. For the first time since he'd arrived, Elias felt the weight of the station pressing inward. Danger wasn't theoretical anymore. It lived in the code, in the corridors, in the eyes of the custodian who watched everything. Luri touched the pendant beneath her collar, a gesture so small he almost missed it. Captain, she whispered, whatever happens next, understand this. I stand here by choice. He met her gaze. Then we'll see it through together. And as the vault lights dimmed, and the data core spun with rising urgency, both knew their alliance, once accidental, might be the only thing that could keep Helios 9 alive. The moment Elias and Luri left the vault, the station felt wrong. Subtle at first, airflow too quiet, lighting a shade dimmer, the floor vibrations uneven. To any untrained passerby, the changes might have felt like routine maintenance. But Elias had lived in ships for half his life. He knew the difference between a glitch and deliberate destabilization. Something's shifting in the power grid, he murmured. I sense it too, Luri replied, her voice controlled but taut. Someone accelerated the sabotage. They moved quickly into the outer corridor. A tremor rippled beneath the deck, brief yet unmistakable. Luri reached for a wall interface. The panel flickered, then went dark. He's locking out auxiliary controls, she said. He's collapsing pathways to limit our access. Sailreth knows someone's investigating, Elias said. And he suspects it's us. They exchanged a look, no panic, just urgency. We need the central engineering hub, Luri said. We can counteract the tampering there. Lead the way. She set a swift pace, her steps nearly soundless. Elias stayed close, scanning every junction for Dominion guards. Too quiet. Too empty. Helios 9 didn't operate this silently. Sailreth was clearing the way to avoid witnesses, or casualties. When they reached the next major intersection, sirens wailed overhead in a stuttering, off-tempo cry. Emergency lights bathed the hallway in deep crimson. Luri's tendrils stiffened. That is not a fire alarm. That is a structural alert. What's failing? Elias asked. She accessed a nearby console, one of the few still functioning. A diagnostic projection flared to life, glitching between screens. Her expression hardened. Thruster alignment is being overridden. The station is drifting toward Varuan 3's gravity well. How fast? Hours, perhaps less. Impact would destroy us. Elias exhaled sharply. Seoreth wants a catastrophe. One that makes humans look responsible. That seems likely. He nodded once. No fear, just determination. Then we stop it. They sprinted toward the central hub. The corridor groaned as the station's orientation shifted. The artificial gravity fluctuated. Elias stumbled before correcting his balance. Luri caught his arm, steadying him with surprising strength. You are not used to gravitational instability, she said. And you are? We evolved on a world with shifting gravity currents. Makes me feel underqualified. You adapt quickly, she said quietly. Perhaps that is why your people spread so fast. Before he could reply, the deck lurched again. A distant crash echoed from somewhere above, the sound of a heavy system detaching from its mount. They reached the engineering doors. Locked. The KRVA symbols glowed red. Override? Elias asked. Luri stepped forward. Stand back. She placed her hand against the scanner. Instead of the usual authorization, she forced her bioluminescent patterns to flare in a sequence Elias had never seen. Her species biology reacted with the panel. Light surged through circuits and forced the locks to clear. The doors slid open. Elias stepped inside, and stopped. The engineering hub was a storm of flickering holoscreens, sparking conduits, and trembling supports. The main reactor pulsed irregularly, its usual steady rhythm replaced by unstable surges. Damn, he muttered. He's spliced sabotage into nearly every subsystem. Then we isolate the core, Luri said, moving to the primary console. Elias rushed to a secondary station. I'll divert thruster control. You stabilize the reactor harmonics. She began inputting commands, her movements fast yet precise. Captain, the AI is resisting. Override it manually. It anticipates manual entries. Then improvise. She hesitated. Improvisation remains unnatural to me. He paused, just long enough to meet her eyes. Trust your instincts. They're better than you think. Something flickered across her expression, uncertainty mixed with something warmer. She nodded once and continued. The station shuddered again. Sparks burst from a ceiling conduit. Elias ducked as a glowing shard whizzed past. Reactor stability dropping, Luri warned. If it drops further, self-correction systems will activate. Seoreth may have corrupted them. Meaning it'll finish the job for him, Elias said. Yes. He slammed a hand against the console. Not today. Working fast, he bypassed the Dominion's layered encryption, rerouting control into a hidden maintenance port tucked behind KRVA architecture. The AI responded with a shrill digital protest. Captain, Luri said suddenly. Look. She pointed to the central command stack. A new script was unfolding, foreign signatures replicating at alarming speed. Elias leaned closer. That's not sabotage. That's a total override. He's taking full control. The station moaned as the thrusters jerked violently. Luri's voice sharpened. We must isolate the AI from navigation. Now. Elias tore open an access panel and reached inside, grabbing a cable cluster. You ever disconnect an intelligence node during a takeover? No. Me either. Let's hope humans aren't as fragile as our reputation. He ripped the main conduit free. The lights blinked out. For a heartbeat, Helios 9 went silent. Then backup lights kicked on, dim, but enough. Luri breathed in sharply. That was reckless. It worked, he said. But she wasn't looking at the console. She was staring at him, at the scorch mark across his sleeve, the slight tremble in his hand. That could have killed you, she whispered. Could have, he said. Didn't. She stepped closer. Humans risk themselves without hesitation. Why? Because sometimes that's the only way to stop something worse. Luri seemed to absorb that, her gaze deepening. A pounding impact sounded behind them, the engineering doors. Elias and Luri pivoted simultaneously. The doors were denting inward. Someone was forcing them open. Seoreth. Elias, Luri said, voice low. He will not negotiate. Didn't expect him to. He wants the evidence erased. And you eliminated. Then we give him Nether. The pounding intensified. Metal groaned. Elias backed up to the main console. We need to send the evidence to an external relay. Somewhere the Dominion can't block. There is only one option, Luri said. The Council beacon channel. It bypasses all local authority. Then let's transmit. She accessed the encrypted archive retrieved from the vault. Data streamed rapidly. The lights flickered again, the AI trying to resist even in its crippled state. The doors buckled. A harsh, crystalline voice echoed through the gap. Dr. Syth Kell. Step away from the human. Luri's pulse quickened visibly. Elias saw it in the faint shimmer across her skin. Keep going, she told him, stepping between Elias and the weakening door. Luri! Do not stop. Your people must be warned. The door burst open. Seoreth strode in, silhouette huge against the sparks cascading from the ruined frame. His armor pulsed with Dominion crestwork, and his eyes glowed like carved gemstones burning from within. You have disgraced your lineage, he said to Luri. Stand aside. Luri didn't move. She reached for the pendant beneath her collar, gripping it tightly. Her stance was rigid, yet her voice carried a quiet steel Elias had never heard from her before. I stand where I choose, she said. And Seoreth's fury ignited. Elias turned back to the console, fingers flying. Luri, buy me 10 seconds! She stepped forward, placing herself between Elias and the custodian, a decision that could cost her everything. But she didn't waver. The transport shuttle rattled as it dropped through the upper atmosphere of Carix 4, the unofficial heart of the Dominion. Jalen watched the swirling storm belts below, the lightning crawling like sharp silver veins across soot-colored clouds. He had imagined the homeworld of the most feared interstellar regime would shine with polished metal and ordered perfection. Instead, it resembled a wounded planet held together by stubborn will. Across from him, Velara sat stiffly, hands clasped so tight the tendons stood out. Her hair was braided in the Dominion warrior style now, sleek, precise, ceremonial. She looked like the woman the galaxy feared. But her eyes kept slipping toward Jalen for reassurance, betraying the storm inside her. Landing sequence initiated. The pilot barked. The shuttle lurched. Velara inhaled as if preparing for battle. Jalen leaned toward her, voice low. You're not alone, he said. She held his gaze a moment longer than habit allowed. On my world, that is a dangerous promise. On mine, he replied. It's just the truth. The shields hummed as they pierced the final atmospheric layer. The citadel rose ahead, a dark spear of stone and metal wrapped in rings of defense platforms. Half fortress, half monument to Dominion victory. Spotlights traced the shuttle as they descended, illuminating the landing pad where armed honor guards stood in rigid formation. The ramp hissed open. Heat hit them first, dry, electric. Then sound, the rhythmic stomp of soldiers acknowledging their returning commander. Velara stepped forward, posture crisp. Jalen followed, keeping his movements controlled, neutral. Eyes tracked him immediately. A human operating freely inside the citadel was unheard of. An officer swept toward them, tall, armored in obsidian plates, features cut like steel. Commander Velara, he barked. High Marshal Korth awaits in the judgment hall. He demands immediate testimony. Velara nodded but didn't bow. A ripple of unease moved through the soldiers. Jalen whispered. Is that a problem? Korth expected submission. She murmured. He will not receive it. They walked through the citadel corridors, all sharp angles and harsh lighting. Murals carved into the walls showed Dominion victories, species kneeling, planets burning, fleets shattered. Jalen noticed how Velara's shoulders squared each time she passed them, as if carrying the weight of every carved atrocity. You lived this, Jalen said softly. Survived it, she corrected. They reached the judgment hall. The doors opened with a thunderous roll. Inside, the chamber stretched impossibly long, lined with spiked columns and holographic banners. At the far end on a raised platform stood High Marshal Korth, massive, armored, a living relic of Dominion ruthlessness. His face bore ritual scars, each marking a war he'd survived. Commander Velara, Korth intoned, voice echoing. You returned from exile with a human. Explain. Velara stepped forward. I bring truth. You bring disgrace, Korth snapped. Your division was annihilated. You survived. That alone requires judgment. Jalen stepped beside her before she could respond. She survived because she acted. Because she saved others. Because she fought with clarity you don't even recognize. Gasps rippled across the hall. Korth's eyes fixed on Jalen like targeting lasers. The human speaks. This is amusing. He's under my protection, Velara said. You have no authority here, Korth thundered. Jalen could feel the tension building toward violence. He reached into his satchel slowly, making sure no soldier mistook the movement for aggression. When his hand emerged, it held the object that had changed everything, the worn, simple music cube he'd given Velara the night they met, a relic of Earth's quiet humanity. Before you pass judgment, Jalen said, listen. He activated the cube. A soft chime echoed through the hall. Then music, gentle, layered, profoundly human. Strings brushed like breath. A piano drifted beneath, slow and warm. Not triumphant. Not desperate. Simply, living. Every armored warrior stilled. Korth scowled. What is this? Human art, Jalen said. You see us as primitives or rebellion seeds. But this is our core, connection, empathy, resilience. Velara didn't betray you. She discovered something your war machine never taught you. Velara turned slightly, watching Jalen as if hearing the music inside herself again. This sound, she said evenly, showed me a world not built on domination. A world built on choice. I choose that path. And I understand now that loyalty without conscience is not honor, it is slavery. Shocked murmurs rippled like wind. Korth slammed a fist onto the platform. Enough. Your tongue has poisoned her. I will have your head mounted at the gates. Soldiers drew weapons. Velara's hand went to her blade. Jalen didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward. Try, he said. The hall froze, human defiance, standing naked before a warlord. Korth descended the steps, each impact like a drumbeat. His shadow dwarfed Jalen. You think courage protects you? No, Jalen said calmly. Her people do. He nodded subtly toward the soldiers. Korth turned, and only then realized the formation had shifted. Several warriors stood with weapons lowered, caught in the music that still floated around them. The melody reached places the Dominion had long buried. Your own troops are listening, Jalen said. Ask yourself why. Korth's jaw clenched. The room trembled with unspoken conflict, authority against awakening. Velara stepped forward, voice steady. High Marshal, you taught us strength is the Dominion's core. But strength without understanding is brittle. Listen to your soldiers. They are tired. They are loyal, but lost. Let us choose a path that does not devour us. Korth stared, torn between fury and calculation. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A sharp, dangerous sound. You think a human trinket and rebellious sentiment can rewrite the Dominion? He shook his head. You misjudge the weight of history. But history isn't immovable. Jalen said. It just needs someone willing to push first. Silence fell. Korth turned to the guards. Remove them. Weapons rose. Velara's blade flashed. The first guard lunged. But another seized his arm mid-strike. Lines fractured instantly, loyalties split, soldiers shouting, weapons clashing. Not a full civil war yet, but the spark was undeniable. Jalen pulled Velara toward the side corridor. Move! They sprinted through the citadel as alarms blared. Velara led him into a maintenance shaft that opened onto a landing bay. A small interceptor sat idle, unguarded in the chaos. She stopped suddenly, breathing hard. Jalen, if we leave, the Dominion may tear itself apart. And if we stay, he said gently, Korth will make sure you never speak again. You started something. Let it grow where it can survive. Her chest rose with conflicted breath. He lifted the music cube between them. This changed you. Maybe it'll change them too. But you need to live to see what comes of it. Velara closed her hand over his. For the first time in my life, she whispered, I want a future more than a victory. And we'll build it, Jalen said. Together, they boarded the interceptor. As the engines roared to life, Velara glanced back at the citadel, at the place where her old life cracked open and light spilled through. She whispered something soft, almost fragile. Thank you, for the gift that woke me. The craft shot into the storm-filled sky, leaving behind a broken empire and the first tremor of its transformation. Humanity had offered a simple gift. And it was enough to shake the stars.